He is known to the world as one of the most incredible American singer-songwriters, known for his soul baritone voice and his amazing ability to write and sing some of the world's most fantastic songs. Mr. Michael McDonald. Michael, how we doing, my friend?
I'm good, JJ. How are you doing?
Good, man. I know you grew up in St. Louis and you were into your early teens during the height of the R&B soul movement of the 1960s. And what kind of musical influence did that have on you at such an early age?
I think St. Louis had a huge influence on me growing up, more than I realized at the time. First of all, I think regional or record sales were still largely regional back then. There were the national hit parade hits that seemed to span the whole continent. Even those weren't. I don't think that roots music really got to that level yet. The Memphis style R&B or Chicago chess records. Those record companies seem to still have their foothold in the Midwest, and even Motown. Motown was one of the first of that kind of label to, I think, break the mold and really capture the entire country's imagination with their releases. And even early on, they were more of a regional Midwest, the East Coast kind of label, and I think there was a lot of small labels back then, Stax Volt being one of them. And, so growing up in that area, you got a really good dose of kind of rhythm and blues music as it existed in that area of the country. And like I said, the Memphis sound, and St. Louis was a very similar kind of a music scene as Memphis, and there was a great jazz scene in St. Louis back then. Then Detroit, and as you went up to Chicago and Detroit, you got a more of a different flavor of R&B in a way. It was not so kind of languid and on the backside of the beat as much as it was, and even the blues, kind of more strictly blues music in Memphis was a different animal than it was in Chicago and in Detroit and New York. In those towns, as you went further north, it seemed to have a little more of a it kind of dropped its country somewhere along the way, going up the Mississippi, and became more of an urban feeling style of music, Largely back then, that was because, distributors and record companies only had so much reach in their territories. And so I feel fortunate to have grown up back there in answer to your question.
Yeah, Michael, I'm so envious. I wish I grew up in the 1960s with all that great music all over the country. And I know you started in the band Steely Dan during the 1970s and early 1980s, but tell me the story, Michael. How did you begin working with the band, the Doobie Brothers? Did it have really something to do with group member Tom Johnson getting sick on tour, then you subbed in and did a stand-up job, and they asked you to become a full-time member?
Well, kind of, I don't know about doing such a fantastic job, but I did. That's how I kind of came into the band. Tom had gone on a hiatus, and it was due to some health reasons at the time. He was, suffering from some really severe ulcers, stomach ulcer condition, and just couldn't tour. So I kind of filled in as a sideman. Largely, Pat took over Tom's vocals live, and I sang a couple of the songs. He threw a couple of songs to me, and then I kind of played a lot of the keyboard parts that. Up until that point, they hadn't really had a keyboard player out with them, So it kind of worked for a lot of reasons in that as a kind of in that span of time. And then when I kind of fully expected that the job would be kind of coming to a close, the guys were nice enough to ask me to kind of stay on, and that was a real thrill for me. And it even invited me to write for the next record, and that was something I totally unexpected for me, and. But, not untypical of those guys in the sense that they were always very open. And most of the guys that had joined the Doobies over the years are guys that they just kind of came in on their own merit. They weren't, and the band was probably more welcoming than most in bringing new guys in, like myself. And Bobby LaKine was working on our crew when he joined the band as percussionist. And all the guys who had kind of joined the Doobies over the years kind of came in a similar way. They kind of somehow crossed paths with the Doobies, and it being those guys being so generous as they are, they kind of absorbed like Jeff Baxter and myself into the band, and it was a wonderful group of people to belong to travel with and to make music with. It was kind of a really dream gig. So everybody was just really good people, you know.
During the 1980s, you had such an incredible solo career, especially with the 1982 tune, I Keep Forgetting, and that was an old Leiber and Stoller tune, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It was originally recorded by Chuck Jackson, and we did it was a kind of a different take on the song, but it was, as you said, a Leiber and Stoller song originally.
Patti LaBelle wrote and recorded her part in Philadelphia, and you recorded your part of the hit single On My Own here in Los Angeles. And how did you guys put that tune together with both of you recording separate parts in separate cities and lining it up so perfectly for that duet on that song?
It was, in hindsight, probably lucky for me because I just sang to Patti's voice on tape. You know, they kind of figured out where they wanted me to sing, and so they just dropped her out there, and they kind of allowed me to kind of, massage my vocal to sound as if I were singing in the studio with her. But, I kind of, just did my best to kind of sing it as a duet, with her. But it was really basically her voice on tape that I was singing to. And Patti, is such a formidable talent. Probably singing in the studio with her live would have scared me to death. So, I often look back and go, that was I probably, lucked out on that one, because I don't know if I could have kept up with her, face to face. Her and I first got together to sing it together on The Tonight Show. We got a chance to rehearse it once the night before, and that was it. And so the first time we ever performed it was on national television on The Tonight Show, and it was just a thrill of a lifetime, and I've sung it with her a few times since then, and it's I sing the song once in a while, and I've sung it with other artists, but there's nothing like singing it with Patti,
The great tune Sweet Freedom, I play that song on my show all the time, and it was thought for the movie Running Scared starring Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal, which was written by Rod Timberton of Heatwave. Sweet Freedom, I mean, it was so different than all the other music you had previously recorded.
Well, it was, and I think that's what really attracted me to it was, first of all, I was a huge fan of Rod and in his time with Heatwave, and I think, that was one of the best R&B bands. If you were ranking all the R&B bands internationally, they'd be in the top 10. They were just had so many great songs, and Rod largely wrote them. And Dick Rudolph was the other writer on that song. Dick Rudolph is Maya Rudolph's dad.
Oh, wow.
So, she was a little girl then. And I was probably hysterical too, but she's probably about 10 years old then.
So, Michael, tell me about the new tour and the projects you're working on these days.
Well, we're kind of I'm finishing a studio album right now, and I'm trying to force myself to finish it. I'm kind of going through one of those, things where it's the first studio album I've done in a while. The Motown records were more fun than work. They didn't really call on me to write anything, and I didn't have to struggle with that part of it so much. It was just, like I say, nothing but fun singing those songs and getting the chance to do those. Doing this kind of record again was kind of a daunting task after not having done one in a while. It's really a record of just demos I had cut over the years while I was off doing other things, and it's a different record than I think people would normally expect from me. I'm hoping to force myself to finish it this summer and hopefully get it out at least by the beginning of next year. It's been a lot of fun doing it. My friend Shannon Forrest is producing it, and Shannon plays drums with Toto right now. So he's a world-class drummer and engineer, and I've known him since he was like 15. He dated one of my friend's daughters. It's small. The world gets smaller and smaller the older you get. But so Shannon and I have been doing this record for the last too long to mention, and hopefully going to get it out sometime this year or early next year.
On July 31st, you can stay with Michael McDonald at his performance at Morongo Casino and Resort in Cabazon. Plus, August 1st, Michael's going to be performing live at the Thornton Winery in Temecula. For more information on Michael, please visit his website at michaelmcdonald.com. Michael McDonald, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it, my friend.
JJ, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.